Alongside Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price for the 2-Minute Drill. Brent, Jeremy Pruitt saying he doesn't have really a contingency plan yet. They've not really talked about it, but feels very comfortable with the fact that most of his staff has either called plays before, has run a team in some form or fashion. As we remember, Jim Chaney was the interim coach here when Derek Dooley got fired. 1-0, baby, 1-0. So, like, there's some, I think if things were to go awry and a coach or two had to miss a game due to COVID-19, the world would not end because so many of these guys are kind of interchangeable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, hats off to the poster who asked that question on the message board today. It's not something I had really thought about. Great question. So we appreciate that. And I thought it was worthy of asking Coach Pruitt, which you did. I think the big question we don't have the answer to there is what happens if Jeremy Pruitt gets the virus? It's easy to say, okay, if one of the coordinators get it, they've got an answer on staff, but who would be, quote, in charge of making all the critical decisions if for some reason Jeremy Pruitt can't coach? That's why we know Jeremy Pruitt's taking all the precautions the way he has for a long time, and certainly he is right now. But, this is staff got a lot of experience, and clearly Coach Pruitt's comfortable if they are to have to miss some parts at some point through this season.
What else stood out to you today in meeting with Coach Pruitt? Obviously, happy with where his team is as far as the way they've practiced coming out of missing last Friday, and still very much in tune with they've got a lot of room to improve, but I think likes his team on the whole.
Yeah, I do think he likes his team. I thought it was kind of interesting, his response to the layout of this fall camp. This is a camp where you don't go back-to-back days. Obviously, they've been doing away with 2-a-days for a long time. It doesn't have the mental and physical strain on you of going 2 or 3 days in a row because of the extended calendar. And so I think the old school coach in him feels like maybe his team might be a little bit behind because they're not straining that way. But the teacher in him likes the fact that they have a day in between practices where they can correct things and can teach that way. Does it affect this team? Does it affect teams around the country when they get into the late, fourth quarter of a game because they haven't sustained for multiple days in a row? I don't know. Everybody's dealing with the same thing, but I thought his take on that was pretty interesting. That kind of jumped out at me. And then I thought his breakdown of kind of the challenges in recruiting. And I know it's not about his team right now, but the challenges in recruiting and sort of what you've missed over the summer and the spring and what you're going to miss in the fall from an evaluation standpoint.
I asked him specifically about the defensive line and maybe who had stood out and who had a kind of a strong start to fall camp. I thought very interesting that Latrell Bumpus got a lot of praise from the head coach. He's a guy, along with Matthew Butler, that are very workmanlike in their approach. And really, I think both understand that, are they the most talented defensive linemen on this roster? Probably not, but they're going to probably outwork just about everybody else.
Yeah, and I thought he had an interesting comment about maybe, and it was a little bit of a subtle, I don't want to say jab, but a subtle call out to some guys when he said at the end of that quote about a lot of that's just want to, kind of how bad do you want it? I think that there's some guys in that rotation in the interior that I think he would like to see a little more consistency out of, both mentally and physically. So there was a little bit of a challenge there, but I'm not surprised really about Butler and Bumpus. When you think about it, those were guys who, as you mentioned, not flashy. You didn't realize that Matthew Butler made a ton of plays last year until you go back to the end of the game or you rewatch a game and you go, man, he did some pretty good things in that game. And they want him to become more of a playmaker, but he was a better football player a year ago, more productive football player a year ago than I think he got credit for, Austin.
So Tennessee will take tomorrow off. They'll return to the practice field on Thursday. Coach Pruitt says this is a team that they feel confident enough, having tested last Friday, to return to the practice field Saturday and, of course, return to it earlier today as Tennessee gets in another practice. They'll return to the practice field on Thursday. As Tennessee moves through fall camp, it's a longer fall camp, a more drawn-out fall camp. But Coach Pruitt likes that because tomorrow is a teaching day, and he loves to teach. For Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price.